not want to go with 1/4 of an inch because it does not allow for a mistake. Hey guys, I hope you're doing great today. We are talking about making simple caddy, and this came about because a viewer asked about allowances, right? Allowances is what I usually refer to as increments that you add to your project. Is that spelled correctly? ALLOWANCES? Yeah! I can do two things at the same time. But yeah, allowances are what I usually refer to as increments, which is the excess fabric over and above what your project's gonna be. So for example, if you are making an insert that is 15 inches by 10 inches, you need to add allowances or increments to your numbers here so that when you're done stitching, your insert will be big enough, right? You cannot just do 15 by 10, because if you do 15 by 10, by the time you're done, your insert is gonna be too small. Basically, there are two inserts I have here. This one is inside a box, right? The allowance here is different from the allowance here. So let's talk about this one. What I did was use Velcro on the inside of the box, and then I put the Velcro on to the insert. Now, because I knew I was doing Velcro here, and the Velcro is 3/4 of an inch, I went ahead and I did a 1-inch double hem. And the 1-inch double hem was just to make sure that when I was done doing my double hem, my Velcro would sit nicely on top and it wouldn't be partially on the hem and on the body of the insert, right? So my Velcro, the size of my Velcro here dictated how much I added. Because I did a 1-inch double hem here, it means then that I added 2 inches to the insert. So if it is 15, I would have added 2 inches because I fold once and then I fold again. For the sides here, I did a basic flat stitch and I added a 1/4 inch to the side here and a 1/4 inch over here, which means then that I added a 1/2 inch for the one panel. I did one panel, and so all I had to add was a 1/2 inch, 1/4 here and 1/4 here, and then I flipped. Right now I will link the video for you so you can check it out. So for this, that's basically the increments that I added. As I said before, this is different, and the reason is, unlike this, I overlapped, right? Now when I'm overlapping here, I need to get the increment for my double hem and for the overlap, and I also need to get the increment for the side seams. Now okay, here's my measuring tape. Let's measure this baby. Oh, my thing is off. Here. So this is 7 inches deep, right? Okay, so this is 7 inches deep. What I use here for the hem is a 1/2 inch double hem. if I use a 1/2 inch double hem, it means that I have to fold 2 times, which means that I have to add 1 inch for the double hem. Now you decide on how much overhang you have. I used 2 inches because there's a handle here and I didn't want to cover the handle, right? If you want to go further down, you can go further down, right? So what I did is, to the length, I added another 2 inches for the overhang, right? So I would have cut the length of my panel 7 plus 1, 8 plus 2, 10 inches, right? Now, for the width, my basket is 19 inches. All I need is a 1/4 inch for flat seams. I used 1 panel of fabric, which means that I would have 1 width. So a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/4 inch on the other side, that's a 1/2 inch. So I would have added a 1/2 inch and my panel would be 19.5 inches. That is what I would cut. However, for this, I actually did a French seam. If I am doing French seams, it means that I'm going to stitch to one side and then I'm going to flip and stitch to the other side. So I would have to allow for that. So basically, I would have to add at least another 1/2 inch, or if it makes you more comfortable, you could add another 3/4 inch. So that would be 20.25 inches. So you can go 20 or you can go 20.25. And these increments are not steadfast. Your increments will depend on the type of fabric you're working with. For example, if you're working with something that frays easily, you may not want to use a 1/4 inch allowance. You may want to go with a 1/2 inch, right? If you're a new sewer, if you're a beginner, you may not want to go with a 1/4 inch because it does not allow for a mistake. If you make a mistake, then your accessory, your insert that you're making may end up being too small. So it's better to go with, say, a 1/2 inch than to go with a 1/4 inch, right? It also, again, as I mentioned about the French seam, depends on the type of seam that you are using. Now, as I said, I'll link the video. I did 12 types of sewing seams that you can use on projects, but I would think the most appropriate ones for an insert would be a flat seam and a French seam, because a French seam encases all the raw edges, so you don't have to be looking at them. Valrine, thank you so much for watching. Looking forward to sharing with you again soon. You take care now.